One. A lot of questions this weekend in the SEC Championship. A lot to break down. This is our previews and predictions for this weekend's SEC Championship. It's Georgia-Bama Part 4. Can Georgia finally get their first win over Bama in the SEC title? Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Southern Sports Scene. I'm your host, as always, Lucas Hill. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at LucasHillSEC. And for more from us here, make sure you hit the like, share, and subscribe down below. My man, Cole Thompson from SEC Unfiltered, joining us to talk all things SEC Championship game. Cole, good to see you, my friend. How are you today?
Brother, we have had a wild week in the world of college football in the SEC. We have Lane Kiffin saying, thanks, but no thanks. I don't want to coach in the college football playoff. I'll be pigeonholed to sticking around at Ole Miss past 2025. Several really good hires, several head-scratching hires, several teams that are on the bubble, and Diego Pavia screaming, hooping, and hollering, let's play a 13th game to guarantee our spot in the college football playoff. This is why this is the greatest sport of all time, and we're going to end it with an elite matchup between two teams that have done almost everything possible to guarantee they are among the finest. And despite having a change with no more Nick Saban, it still is Alabama and Georgia at the end of the day.
Like you mentioned, Georgia 2.5-point favorite playing in Atlanta. A little bit different ordeal now this time around. Here's my thing about Georgia. It's been running back by committee compared to the first matchup against Bama. You're seeing a lot more Nate Bell. Chauncey Bowens hasn't gotten as many carries as he did against Bama that first game. That's just been the emergence of how deep this running back room is. Bama's defense still struggling against the run, which honestly, this isn't your mama's Bama defense. This is a Kane Womack system that has kind of faltered at times in the run defense, but they've consistently gotten somewhat better on the offensive side of the ball. The biggest thing is that you've seen consistency, though. The problem, though, in games like Oklahoma is that they just were not able to finish. So what's the key going into this one, Cole? I kind of already mentioned a little bit. What are some things off the top of your head for Bama to secure another title under Kalen DeBoer?
Well, number one, this is really a Kirby versus Alabama thing because Kirby's 1-7 all time against Crimson Tide. That's just the bottom line. Now, the one caveat that I will throw into this argument is Kirby's gotten revenge in every single matchup that he's ever had a loss against. So whether that be against Auburn, whether that be against Alabama, whenever he loses, if he plays the team in the same year, he finds a way to get the rematch and he fixes the faults and he puts himself in a good position. When it comes to Chauncey Bowens, the big thing was that he was dealing with injuries. He wasn't able to be active, so that's kind of why they went to Bo Walker. That's why you saw more Nate Frazier. He's not on the injury report. So you're going to see a bunch of Chauncey Bowens, I think, in this game. And the same thing goes for Taylon Taylor. Now, Taylon Taylor's a really interesting one, Lucas, because if you remember, Taylon Taylor got targeted by Gunnar Stockton on an easy fly pattern across the middle of the field in the third quarter. And if he hauls that in, Georgia takes the lead. So for Alabama, when you're looking at it from the perspective of what do they have to do, number one, they're going to, I think, have to make Georgia one-dimensional. Now, what do you trust more? Do you trust your secondary to be able to go toe-to-toe alongside with guys like Zachariah Branch, who, by the way, if you remember the game against Malcolm Simmons last week, Malcolm Simmons beat the brakes off of Alabama in space. That's Zachariah Branch, but a lot faster, a lot more elusive, and a lot more smooth with his cuts. So he can beat you that way. But do you feel like that the rest of your secondary, whether it be with Dijon Lee, whether it be with Keon Sabb, Ray Hubbard, they can go toe-to-toe with Noah Thomas, Dylan Bell, and Oscar Delp, Lawson Lucky, Taylon Taylor for that matter. Could they easily be able to kind of neutralize them in the passing attack? Therefore, you just let them gain yards after contact, which, again, has been the weak point of Alabama's defense this entire year. I think the other thing is that from the offensive standpoint, Alabama right now has really kind of taken a step back in the passing game. Not enough to be like, oh, you're scared or that like Ty Simpson's regressed entirely. He's made some really, really, really good throws and almost at an elite level. But for every elite throw, he's also overshot a target. He's also kind of gone through his progression a little bit faster. He's done a lot of good things to the line of scrimmage, understanding concepts and understanding, hey, there's a guy calling audible. We got to make a switch up before we go ahead and get the play on off. The big question mark is, what do you do about the security blanket that was Josh Cuevas? Cuevas was such a find in the month of November. He was a really, really good fit for what you want to see in the flats. Kind of that security blanket. He missed last week's game. And going into this game right now, he is very much up in question. He's listed as questionable going into the matchup, along with Cam Dewberry. So is he going to play? I mean, that's a big-time answer at this point. What really is going to decide this game for me, Lucas, is the margin of error in certain details. And how much have we learned from these two teams? Like, Alabama, in both of its matchups against Kirby Smart with Kalen DeBoer at the helm, they started off strong in the first 15. I mean, they got up to a 14-0 lead last time the two met up. Jalen Milroe last season was able to put belt to ass at the very beginning of the game. And then Georgia won the second half. So do we see a flip? Does Georgia win the first 15 and Alabama is able to win the second half? But because Georgia is just such a potent roster, they're going to be able to hold out and compare to Alabama. And then also, are we going to see Alabama fix the adjustments that we've kind of been missing the last few weeks to where we're back on point? I think a big key element, and one thing that if you told me this is the stat line of, if you want me to break on who's going to come out on top, tell me who wins on third down more efficiently. Because what happened in that Alabama game the first time around? They were 11 of 13, if I'm not mistaken. They were 8 of 8 to begin the game. Ty Simpson was surgical at that standpoint. Does he do it again? If he does, I mean, Alabama, you got to feel pretty confident.
You mentioned about Josh Cuevas potentially missing this week. I would expect for him to play, knowing what the extent of his injury is. I think he'll be fine. Am I certain he's going to be 100%? No, not at all. But I still think that you still have that safety blanket that you could check down to in the flats, and he can get you yards after space. One thing that I kind of see that as kind of what South Carolina does on some of their opening possessions. I don't know if you watched much, especially on the first plays of the game. It was always flats out to the tight end, and they pick up 7 or 8 yards right off the bat. So I think that's something that I want to see Bama start to do more often now, especially in the red zone. Who's an X factor that is going to end up making a big play when it's all said and done? Because I don't know about Kevin Riley. We know about what Jeremy Bernard can do. Lloyd Brooks has had some big moments. Who else do I need to look out for this weekend that could potentially make an impact that we haven't called their name much this year?
Are you talking offensively or defensively? I guess
either or.
Jansis Pierre has got to be one that I think that you got to look at. I mean, he's just been such a freaking find over the last couple months, like the last couple weeks. Really started to come on strong in the second half of that South Carolina game and has been the anchor of this defensive pass rush for a while underneath Kane Womack. Again, I think that putting pressure on a team like Gunnar Stockton to have some errant passes, that's going to throw in a double coverage downfield where you get a Bray Hubbard kind of lurking over the top. You get a Keon Sabb. You get a Xavier Brown. You get a Deshaun Jones. You get a Taylor Ivan. You get a Dijon Lee. You get somebody like playing in that spot. So I think that's going to be big. Offensively, I mean, the easy answer is probably going to be Jeremy Bernard. You want to see him get back to the level of what he once was. But I'll go Isaiah Horton. I mean, you got to remind yourself, Horton was a former teammate of Ty Simpson before he got to Alabama, and the two went their separate ways. And now he's at Alabama, and arguably the most impactful game of the year, where we all know where the Voodoo Shaman man likes to come on out on the Auburn Plains whenever the Iron Bowl occurs there. He had 3 touchdowns, and he was finding ways on open. And he's done that multiple times this year to kind of be stepping on up in the biggest moment for Alabama's passing attack. And I think there's a trust factor for Ty Simpson when it comes to that guy. I think that's really kind of the big selling point. For me on the other side, when it comes to Georgia, offensively, I'll go if he plays. Like, I want to say it's going to be Chauncey Bowens if he plays, because Chauncey Bowens is he's physical. He's not he's a yards after contact guy. And more specifically, he's a dude that you're not bringing down on initial contact. I think that's something that's really, really poignant to say when it comes to Alabama, because as long as you're not taking negative yards, there's an opportunity for you to do what Georgia does best, which is win the time of possession, milk the clock, pressure on the opposing offense to have to capitalize and speed up their process. And it's a mental mind game that you do with Kirby Smart. But if you don't have that physical running back in Chauncey Bowens, I don't know if you can be that guy. If I were to go with another one, it's probably going to be Juan Gaston on the offensive line. If it's not him, it's going to be Ernest Green. If it's not him, it's going to be Monroe Freeling. I mean, like, you got to remind yourself, the interior of the offensive line right now for Georgia is going to be banged up because they don't have Drew Bobo in this game. Bobo's already been rolled out. That's a really big deal when it comes to running the football, which is still always going to be, I think, the bread and butter of a Georgia-led roster. So can that interior offensive line be able to win against Alabama's defensive front? I mean, Alabama's defensive front. And I mean Tim Keenan, because Tim Keenan, whether you want to believe it or not, dude, he may not have a lot of stats, but he fills space, he takes up a lot of room, and he basically shuts down running lanes single-handedly. For the defensive side of Georgia, it's really tough, but I'll probably say at this point you want to go with Raylan Wilson. Like, Raylan Wilson could do a little bit of everything. You got to make sure that he's got his eyes in the backfield on Jam Miller, depending on his status, A.K. Deere, Kevin Riley. I think also Josh Cuevas in that standpoint. You know, Raylan Wilson could also be a blitzer. And if you set him on a delayed blitz where, you have Ty Simpson in a 7-step drawback, which is kind of ridiculous to think that he has time in a 7-step drawback, then what you're doing is you're now pushing him back 14, 15 yards. And now Alabama's going to live in 3rd and 23. That automatically tells the defense what you have to do as a player. You're playing the pass. You're lining up in zone. You're keeping everything in front of you to make sure that you don't give out that explosive 20-yard play downfield. So I think Raylan Wilson's probably a really good answer just because of how they can utilize him as the money backer.
You pretty much took the answer right out of my mouth. I'll say this for Georgia. It's either going to be one of your 3 centers, and I know that they've been kind of rotating in with Malachi Tolliver, Cortez Smith, and Dontrell Glover at center. I think they're going to roll with Malachi this weekend. Because they roll with him in the second half against Georgia Tech. I think he held his own for the most part, but I still think it's going to be center by committee. If he starts to struggle, have bad snaps, get beat on pass rush situations, I do see this one kind of being a rotational type of game for Georgia at center until you finally get a guy. And if this does become a problem in the college football playoff, which it shouldn't be, you should have Bobo back for the second round of playoffs. Yeah. And hopefully that you can finally get some consistency in that department. You kind of mentioned briefly about the offense. And look, both offenses have played time of possession. They've been both teams that have wanted to bleed clock, and they're system offenses, unlike most of the other offenses that we've seen in the SEC most of the year. My issues with both of them is that second half against Georgia Tech, Georgia couldn't sustain a drive to save their life. They couldn't do anything against a Georgia Tech defense that was god-awful the last 3 games. Give up over 500 yards in 3 games on average. And the fact of the matter is that if you're Georgia, you got to be able to create big plays against this secondary. You got to be able to challenge this secondary that at times has been very good, but at times has kind of gotten beat in coverage at times. I say the same thing for Alabama. You got to be able to finish drives. Oklahoma's a great example. Last week was a great example in the Iron Bowl. Struggled in the first half struggled in the second half, sustaining drives, had to settle for 3 and outs, and you just had these little mental errors that could have lost you the football game down the stretch. So what needs to be what do you think has been adjusted the last 2 weeks from what they've learned, what they're going to produce this weekend?
I mean, Lucas, if you want me to be real, nothing's being adjusted. I mean, this is who you are as an offense at this point. I've heard people from Alabama tell me, well, when we get the running game going, you ain't getting the running game going. Guys, we are in week 14 of the college football season. This is your running game. This is who you are. It doesn't change overnight. I got Oklahoma fans in my comment section saying, how dare you think that we could be a one and done in the playoffs when your offense what? This is your offense. That's what you have. You got to find a way to play against it. So, for Georgia, the one thing I will say is I thought in the first half, Mike Bobo called a game plan where he was trying to send a message to the College Football Playoff Committee that we mean business and we can beat you in so many ways. When sometimes less is more, and more specifically, when you're going up against a team that you already know you're going to beat if you just play to your strengths and you don't turn the football over, then that's enough. And the strength of Georgia has been running the football and creating opportunities on third down. So if you go back to that, be able to do what you did against Tennessee in the first, coming out of halftime, if you're able to do what you did against Alabama coming out of halftime, the first time you guys met, which is time of possession, milk the clock, and at some point, as Kirby likes to put it, make a break by having Alabama players with their hands on their pads, going and basically saying, I'm out of breath. I need to be able to kind of get off the field. You get up a touchdown, your defense steps on up, they force a 3 and out, you tire the defense already even more, and you do it again, then I think that Georgia's in a really good spot. But the problem is that the Drew Bobo injury is a little concerning when it comes to running the football, which is the way that you're supposed to do death march. You don't death march a team by winning on just short completions. That's not the way that it happens. And again, both Georgia and Alabama know how to play with time possession, as you said. Georgia is number 5 in the country in time possession per game. Alabama's 10th. They love to go ahead and play keep away, and this is the game where it can happen. For Alabama at this point, Ty Simpson does a lot of good. A lot, even when it's bad looking. Do you remember the 4th down run that you saw? What was it? Against Auburn, the third quarter, and he just he looks like a horse that has barely a baby foal that just has figured out I have feet. He
looks like a chicken with his head cut off.
He looks like such a moron, but he's athletic enough to make that play. But like little things like that for Alabama, where you fall down too early, or you trip over your own foot, or an offensive lineman is blown off the line of scrimmage and he steps on Simpson, and now he's lost his footing to where he misses the handoff entirely. Like stuff like that goes a long way, and that's gonna be a problem for Alabama. I think that when you look back at the entirety of the month of November for Ty Simpson, the thing that I always said was he's doing everything right, but there's just a minute little thing that's off. And there's a lot of things that he does when it comes to the mental side of things that you love in your quarterback. And I think that speaks incredible volumes of why I still believe he's a top 3 quarterback this season in college football. Because the mental side of understanding concepts and understanding defensive formations and to be able to kind of play the trap game against really good coordinators has been great. But it's just the game against LSU. Alabama should have won by 30, but the ball just was over the head of Rico Scott. The ball was just out of reach of Latsier Brooks. And depending on where you are in coverage, you got a guy like KJ Bolden, you got a good cornerback like Ellis Robinson that's kind of turned the corner. Ball being slightly overthrown leads to a pick. And so that's going to be something I think Ty Simpson's going to have to work on when he's trying to connect at least 15 yards downfield. Whoever can kind of do those things, I think is going to come away with the win.
That's why I say that Ty Simpson is a perfect system quarterback, because what Ryan Grubb wants in a quarterback like Ty Simpson is going to work perfectly whenever they step out onto the field. That's why I've been very high on something like that. I see why you kind of have him as a top 3 quarterback, but at the same time, he can fit within a system. I don't know if it's going to be an NFL system, though. That's why I don't really have him as a top 5 quarterback right now. But, hey, I mean, you still got a couple games left, plus the combine.
I mean, Lucas, for me, the rule is always when I'm talking about college players, I care about you and what you do Saturday. Whatever happens to you in the Sunday game, so be it. Peace out.
Well, yeah, I agree with that, too. But I'm also wanting to see if your game right now can translate to a Sunday, too, though.
Yeah, but, sure. I mean, like, I love Diego Pavia more than the next folk next to me. Like, I'm probably the head of the Diego Pavia fan club committee. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in college football. Kid's going to be an undrafted free agent, potentially 7th round pick. But again, like, I was so big on Jackson Dart last year. And I'll be the first to tell you, I didn't think Jackson Dart deserved to go in the first round. But what he did do in the college level, I thought was really poignant. I think that, again, you look at Ty Simpson, you got to fix those minute little details. But it can go a long way in helping you sustain drives and put yourself in a position to where you're in the red zone, you're walking away with points. Again, it's Alabama, so, kicking is always going to be a question mark regardless of if it's Connor Culty or not.
I got a question for you. How much does Bama miss Justice Haynes?
Ooh, a big part, I think, but also at the same time, I think that they were really good with Jam Miller. I think that the thing that really is kind of interesting is how much the offense has changed in terms of what Ryan Grubb brought in compared to what you had last season with DeMarcus Shepard and Nick Sheridan. So that probably is a big time deal. I'm not sure that Justice Haynes would be as good as a fit. Like just do yourself a favor. What if Ryan Grubb and his style of offense and the way that he calls games, which was infuriating for Mike McDonald, which is why he got let go. What if Jam Miller's the one at Michigan, Justice Haynes is the one that's here, and it's the same result? So, like, partially, I can get where you come from. I think Justice Haynes is in a perfect fit system in Chip Lindsey's offense in Ann Arbor, which is why we were talking about him in such a highlight. Does he feel that way at Alabama? I don't know if there's an Alabama running back currently on the roster that fits what they want to run with the Ryan Grubb. That's not to say that they don't miss him, but I think that you may see the same results if you just said, hey, 22 is staying, 26 is going to Ann Arbor.
Problem is that they both can't stay healthy. Jam Miller's been struggling with injury most of the season, and Justice Haynes has been struggling with injury since the beginning of November or something like that?
Yeah, he's out. I mean, they don't expect him back until the bowl game, and now they may not expect him back till next year.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. Okay, line in this football game is 2.5, obviously. Are you taking Georgia for the points? But by the way, too, over-under is 48.5. Now, in my opinion,
the line moved. It was initially 47.5, so they're moving it up, which I find really interesting because now gamblers are saying, "Hey, it's gonna be a high-scoring game," and I can see it in some capacity. Like I think if you're saying high scoring, are you saying 45-34? No, I don't think it's anywhere near that. If you told me like 28-20, which would be right at that line of 48. Yeah, I think I could see that. I think that both these teams have enough to where you can believe that the over is going to hit. Here's the bottom line, Lucas. I know that Kirby Smart is the best coach in college football, and I will die on that. I think that not only does he have his mentally prepared, not only does he have his roster always ready to go, but he's the best second half adjustment coach in college football. And there's an opportunity where he may be the best second adjustment half coach in college football period in the history of the game. For me, you beat Bama one time. You've done it one time, and you didn't in a national championship. And I'm not going to be one of those people that says because of Jamison Williams and John Mechie tore their ACLs, you didn't have the two best wide receivers on the field available, because that's not fair to Kirby. That isn't. You want a game fair and square. Those are two outliers that were something that did occur in that matchup. And outside that, he's never beaten Alabama. I have to see it. And I understand that you can go ahead and tell me, well, look at what Georgia's done. Look at what Alabama's done. Look at how well Georgia's looked. Look at how terrible at times Alabama's looked. I also got told that Alabama can't go into Sanford Stadium and beat Georgia where they never lose, where they never find a way to lose. Mission accomplished there. And the other thing that's like really important here is that like I hear so much slander about Kalen DeBoer, and I think it's just beyond pathetically moronic takes that Alabama fans, Georgia fans, really any fan out there is just saying he's not Nick Saban, so therefore he sucks. Well, the man is 7-0 against some of the best coaches in college football, including Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, and Kirby Smart. It's history is telling us right now, this is why you pick Alabama. And I'm picking Alabama. You got to give me a data point that says Alabama is going to find a way to lose this game. The only data point that we have is that the last time that Georgia played Alabama in the same season, Georgia lost once, won a second time. But besides that, he has lost every single time. So I got a 28-24 Alabama winning the football game.
I mean, everywhere that Kalen DeBoer goes, he wins. Sioux Falls wins a couple of NAIA championships. Goes to Fresno State, takes over in the middle of the season for God dog it. You're going to make me forget. Jeff Tedford, good Lord. And wins 10 games there. Goes to Washington, 2 years, 10 wins, national championship appearance. Bama, same as usual. Ready for doomsday scenario, Cole. Bama loses. Do they still deserve to be in the college football playoff at 10-3?
What's the score of the game?
Okay, if it's close or if it's a blowout.
If it's a blowout, I personally would not put Alabama in. Now, This is what I would do as a person who loves college football. If there's an opportunity for you to end the argument of Notre Dame and Miami, and it's a blowout, I can understand with that Florida State loss and with the loss to Georgia. Yes, there is a case. I don't think either way Alabama's out. Because here's the reason why, Lucas. There's two main points. Number one, let's say that Texas Tech loses to BYU. Well, BYU lost in the regular season to Texas Tech. Are we going to kick out Texas Tech for losing a game that wasn't promised at the start of the year against a team that they beat in the regular season? Because if we're going to go by that logic, then yeah, Alabama can go out. That's the thing. Georgia lost to Alabama in the regular season. That's priority number one. Number two, Alabama's the number one team in the SEC. And no, they're not number one in terms of rankings. And no, they're not number one because they're actually number 9 in the pecking order. But on Saturday, you're going to see Alabama come out in the red jerseys and you're going to see Georgia in their away jerseys. Why? Alabama is the higher seed. They have one conference loss. They have one win in a head-to-head over Georgia. So you're going to look at Greg Sankey, the man who currently is trying to find a way to guarantee that he has the most representation in college football every single year in the playoff. And you're going to say, yeah, your number one team that beat Georgia in the regular season, made history with 4 straight SEC ranked wins, and is 10-2 with some of the more impressive victories of the year. We're going to leave them out because they lost by a game-winning field goal. Yeah, watch what happens with the rest of the college football playoff moving forward. Just watch how quickly Tony Petitti's phone is going off and saying, we're done. We're creating our own playoff. We are going to the NCAA next year and boosters and sponsors, and we're saying, we're starting our own thing. Have fun playing your nonchalant game. We're going to play for an actual title.
I thought they were already planning to go to the Super League. They might as well do it.
Well, it's going to get there when the media rights come out in 2031 for the ACC, because then Clemson can be made available, and then Miami can be made available, and North Carolina can be made available. And then depending on what you have in the Big 12, Texas Tech, their money, they continue to win at the highest level. They'll be thrown on in. Notre Dame will be thrown on in, and then we'll have the Super League. But we're putting it off at least for another few years. But this is a way to guarantee that the Super League happens. So I think Alabama, deservingly, non-deservingly, probably not, they're going to be in the playoff. They just are. And I think that the committee set a precedent of this to put themselves in this position when they moved Alabama to number 9 on Tuesday. And they did that just in case BYU wins. Because if BYU wins, now the argument goes to automatically, well, Alabama drops to 10, which means we shipped out Notre Dame, which means Notre Dame and Miami both are out.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, if the college football playoff wasn't already stupid enough, I mean, the fact that you went to 12 instead of 8, that's what's causing all of this. I mean, you should have just stuck with 8, or at the least bit, we might as well just go back to the freaking BCS.
Listen, I'm not complaining about the BCS because I actually love the bowl games. I very much I grew up in a time period, Lucas, where winning the Peach Bowl was a big deal, where winning the Sugar Bowl was a massive deal. Now you win the Sugar Bowl and it's yay! Time to go out to Los Angeles to play in the Rose Bowl. Those games used to have so much validity to it, and I would love for them to bring those back and just have on-campus matchups. But unfortunately, the problem is that you have people being run by corporations that think they know what's best for football. They don't have no idea what's best for football. They know what's best for their wallets.
This is why I grew up. The last time the BCS was playing, I was like, 8 or 9 years old. So that tells you my age. Cole Thompson, SEC Unfiltered, joining us once again here on Southern Sports Scene. Once again, we appreciate all of our sponsors for coming on in. Make sure you go on over to our good friends over at Frostbuddy and use my promo code SSS15 to get 15% off all your tumblers, your mugs. Christmas season is coming around. Got to get yourself some nice gifts for the loved ones. Also going over to Chike Nutrition. Coffee is expensive, but go on over to Chike Nutrition for a better alternative to coffee. 20 grams of protein, 1 gram of fat, 1 gram of sugar. Click the link below and get 10% off of your first purchase. Cole Thompson, SEC Unfiltered, joining us. Appreciate you taking the time, man. Have a great rest of the week.
Hey, anytime, Lucas. Take care.